guys, Rhys here from More Than Lifting with the More Than Lifting podcast. Conversations about calisthenics, bodyweight training, gymnastics, all that good stuff. I'm Rhys, the personal trainer and the guy who runs morethanlifting.com, a site all about bodyweight training, calisthenics and how you can get in great shape with the pursuit of skills, rather than doing the same deadlifts and bench presses your whole life. And yeah, so that's a bit about me. In this episode, we're going to talk about the dynamic skill progressions that you can use, or the dynamic skill progression formula, which is just a fancy way of saying how to learn dynamic skills. Things like muscle ups, handstand push ups, I guess. I mean, yeah, why not? You could do that. You could do anything with this, really, like where you take your skills, but they are dynamic, or basically it just means they're moving. So instead of being isometric skills. So this is things like muscle ups, pull ups even. You can apply it to front lever pulls, planche push ups, handstand push ups, all that kind of stuff. So it's really like a very simple template of exercise progressions and regressive exercises that you can use to learn these crazy skills to take your training to the next level. All right, so we'll start with probably the two most common. We'll start with the harder stuff that will keep you closer to your goal, and then we'll move down to the easiest and most basic stuff last. All right, so we've got kind of two or three that really sit at the top. All right, and dynamic movements are obviously movements where you are moving, dynamic, as opposed to isometric where you're staying still. So this is really about working the movement in some fashion. All right, and there's a couple of different fashions, that's why I'm saying a couple of different ways, rather than just working on your holds. Because if you want to learn front lever pull-ups, there's no point. I mean, yeah, get good at your front lever, but at some point you've got to start moving. All right, and this is how you go about it. So right at the top then we have negatives, which are literally just the gravity part of your exercise when you go down. All right, so all you're doing when you do negative reps of any exercise, pull-ups, muscle-ups, front lever pulls, planche push-ups, it's negative is just where you're using the gravity and you're doing the down part of the exercise, rather than the point where you're pushing or pulling with all your strength, because that part you can't do, which is why you have to do your progressions. This in particular is literally doing half of the rep. All right, so it is one of the best ways to learn stuff. If you're trying to do pull-ups, if you can't do pull-ups right now, do negative pulls, and all you're doing is jumping up to the bar and then slowly going down. The slower you go, the more time you're spending under tension, which is why you have high rep counts for different stuff. It's simulating that time under tension for your muscles. So you can do the equivalent of, say, 10 pull-ups really by just doing a super long negative, because you're stressing all your muscles in the same way, but you don't need to do the full level of the skill. So that's just something really cool that you can bear in mind when you're doing negatives. You think, oh mate, if I make this negative last twice as long as what I would make a rep last, then I mean you could call that like almost the equivalent of doing that rep, whether it's a muscle up, whether it's a planche push up. Like if you can get into a planche and then you do a slow negative, just resist gravity, like you are working that push up. All right, so that's good times. So the next one then is isometric holds. Okay, and isometric holds aren't the same as isometric skills, okay, because they apply to exercises where you're moving. So if you're doing this and you're going to try and apply this to front lever pulls or planche push-ups or something like that, doing your front lever or doing your planche is not a progression. But what you do with isometric holds is you take the halfway point or the top or bottom and you stop there and you hold there, or then you have the option from there. You can go up and down, or you can just do a 5-second hold at the top, 5-second hold at the bottom, 5-second hold halfway. You can kind of work your imagination with this and how you're going to work this into reps and stuff. But isometric holds are a great way of building strength in a particular position. So say the initial part of your pull-up sucks, you do an isometric hold, like you hold right at the bottom of that rep before you disengage your shoulders and your elbows straighten out. So you're right there at the bottom of the rep holding that position. And if, say, the top bit, you struggle to get your head high above the bar when you're doing your pull-ups. You work that isometric right at the top of that bar with your chest like on top of the bar almost, so you're like high with your legs out in front of you holding that position, and that will get you better at being in that position. So when it comes to actually doing the reps and actually mastering the dynamic skill, then you've already built the muscle power to maintain that position, to hold it, to get there. Okay, and that's what's important. So then the next one is mini reps, number 3. All right, so far we've had negatives, isometric holds, and now we're going to talk about mini reps. And mini reps is just what I call it. You might call them like 50-50 reps or something, and or like half reps, which a lot of people call half reps. Are basically where you don't do the full rep. You see people all the time in gyms doing this with pull-ups, thinking that they're pull-up masters with their 10, 12, 15, 18, 25 reps or whatever. But basically what they do is they get halfway and then they just like bounce around. So it's not a full rep. You're not fully extending at either end of your rep. You're just in the middle, and you're working like, say, a 50% range of motion from halfway, so you go 25% one way, 25% the other. And this allows you to kind of almost work like a plyometric, like kind of simulation, where you're using the elasticity in your muscles to kind of work the movement. And so that's really good. If you struggle with your pull-ups, you can't really do it so much with muscle-ups, but say front lever pull-ups, this is a really good one, because one of the best ways to get into a pull-up is with, a front lever, is with that kind of negative pull. So you pull right up to the bar with your hips and then lower yourself down. You see people do this all the time with front levers, because it's very hard just to do that shoulder press straight up into a lever, or even to just come down into it to a full lever. So that's how I'd recommend people learn it. We won't get into that now, but if you were going to learn front lever pulls, then these mini reps would be a perfect way for you to start learning that dynamic movement in the position. Because when you're doing a front lever, your shoulders are engaged, you're trying to focus on your arms being straight. Then to teach yourself to maintain that position and pull up as well, it's very difficult. So these mini reps are great, as are the negatives and the iso holds. If you're trying to learn planche push-ups and you can hold right at the bottom, I mean, your halfway point is like an elbow lever really, isn't it? So you should already be good at elbow levers, and that's not balancing on your hips, on your elbows, but actually supporting yourself at that halfway point. And then you can do it at the bottom as well, which would be harder just to press into, but you can use your negative and kind of catch it at the bottom and really hold down that bit. So that's the 3 kind of big strength builders and rep builders. Then we have kip reps. And there's loads of controversy over kips, kipping, and I'm not a fan. But when you're learning stuff, it is often a by any means necessary kind of situation. So if you're struggling with reps, really it's better just to be able to do as many as you can, provided it's safe. And this is where the kind of argument with kips come in, because it can easily not be safe, and people damage their shoulders and stuff like that, and then that's big trouble, you know. It'll put you out training for a start, at least for a while. So kip reps you want to do when you're right on the cusp of kind of getting them, but so you don't yet have the strength for strict reps, but you want to be able to do 10, and it's better to do 10 bad ones than none at the end of the day. So kip reps are good as a tool for early progression towards mastery. Like when you first kind of get an exercise, maybe you can do 1 or 2 decent reps. You still want to do 5 or 6. So use that kip, use that kind of swing a little bit to try and get in for the rep. And that's what it is, using your momentum to get yourself through. You see loads of people doing muscle ups all over the world with kipping, all right? And that's because strict muscle ups are really hard. But that kip's great because you're still working those muscles. It's more plyometric than it is with like strict muscle ups, but it's still, that doesn't mean it's bad training. It's just bad training if you use that as an example of a strict muscle up. If you're using it to achieve a strict muscle up, like go crazy, but ultimately a strict muscle up is better than a kip one. So that's it, kip reps. So that's 4 4 different types. So we've had negatives, mini iso holds, isometric holds, mini reps like your 50 percenters, and we've had kip reps. Next, these 2 are kind of grouped together, and so I'm just going to call them assisted reps. But you can do them assisted with a training partner, or you can do them assisted with resistance bands, and they each have their different kind of advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of having a person there is they can work your form, they can help you, they can kind of adjust a bit where resistance bands can't. You're in that position, the resistance band's there, and it's either helping you or it isn't as much, and it really depends on where you're at. Resistance bands are great. I'm not against resistance bands. If you're learning to do dynamic skills, then they can be really good just to help you work within the rep, especially with those kind of mini rep situations or kip reps even, because they kind of push you straight back up when you come down. But with assisted, it can be adjusted. Assisted muscle ups are great training for muscle ups. So definitely get a training partner and get them to lift you up when you're doing your muscle ups, rather than use a resistance band. If you don't have one, use a resistance band, like by all means. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't use resistance bands, they're still great. But having someone hold your legs and kind of support you through it is a bit better, because it's not as easy for him to just throw you back up and you to rely on it like you can with a resistance band. You can sit on resistance bands for ages, you know what I mean, never progress to the proper end of like the full exercise, because you're stuck at that resistance band, because you rely on that resistance band and you're not actively pushing towards mastery of the exercise, working those progressions and using it as a tool rather than, oh, that's my pull-up training, resistance bands. All right, so that is the kind of 6 different progression templated exercises that you can use. These are the 6 different dynamic skill progressions, and yeah, that's it. Negatives, isometric holds, mini reps or 50 percenters, half reps, kip reps, and then assisted with resistance bands or training partners. Okay, so that's it, really. That's it from me for this episode. If you like what you've heard, give us a subscribe. We do it twice a week. I've got loads of great stuff coming out. If you got any questions, comments, like hit me up at More Than Lifting on Instagram, Twitter. Check it out on Facebook. Give me a message or whatever. You know what I mean? Just reach out to me, ask me a question. If you've got suggestions for the podcast or anything, just let me know. Let's have a chat about it. I'm open to that. And hit me on the DM. Otherwise, check me out at More Than Lifting anywhere. And if you're ready to take your training to the next level, then go to morethanlifting.com/12 weeks and sign up for the 12-week mastery program, which will take you from 0 to bodyweight athletes in the hardest 3 months of your life. But I've got all this stuff programmed in. Like, it includes progressions and regression variations of workouts depending on what you're at. So they're essentially 3 different programs in one, and it includes the skill training, it includes the strength training, it includes the cardio stuff, and we even have time for a deload week where we work on bands specifically while you rest and catch up. Your body catches up with your mind. Alright, so that's it, guys. As always, keep in touch with yourselves. If you reach me out in the DM with crazy exercises you can do or nudies, then that's all good with me. And otherwise, I will catch you in the next episode in a couple of days, and keep in touch with yourselves.